Welcome to Learn English with Podcast. Today, our amazing hosts, Luca and Maria, are here to take you through another exciting episode. Luca, Maria, over to you.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit. In a world that, often screams, go faster, do more, have you ever felt that quiet whisper of burnout?
Oh, definitely.
Like you're constantly striving, pushing, but maybe never quite feeling like you've arrived. Or maybe that little voice inside questioning why you just can't seem to stick with your own intentions.
It's a feeling I think many of us know really well. We've been looking into fascinating collection of ideas lately that honestly challenges the very foundation of how we typically approach personal growth and discipline.
Yeah, how so?
Well, it presents a much gentler, I'd say more sustainable path. The focus isn't just on more effort, gritting your teeth, but actually on smarter, maybe kinder strategies.
Okay, kinder strategies. I like the sound of that. So today, our mission, let's say, is to really extract the most potent insights from these concepts. We want to give you a kind of shortcut to understanding how tiny, almost invisible changes can lead to really monumental shifts. Shifts in your daily life, your emotional well-being, even your journey, learning new skills, like especially English, which we know many of you are focused on. We're exploring these really practical micro habits.
That's the key phrase, micro habits.
Yeah, and they promise to transform your whole relationship with progress itself. It sounds big, but the idea is starting small.
Exactly.
And hey, before we dive really deep, if you're finding these explorations helpful, if this resonates with you, please take just a second right now. Hit that like button.
Yeah, it really helps.
It does. Share this deep dive with someone you think might need these insights. And of course, make sure you're subscribed to our channel. It genuinely takes a lot of hard work to bring these analyses together for you.
It really does.
And your support, it honestly means the world to us. So thank you in advance for that.
Okay, so where do we start? The hustle mindset.
Yeah, let's start there, because here's where it gets really interesting, I think. We're often sold this idea, aren't we? That success comes only from extreme effort, the go big or go home mentality.
Right, the all or nothing approach.
Exactly. But what if that very mindset, that pressure, is actually the reason so many of our aspirations, our goals, just do fall apart?
Well, what's fascinating here, looking at these ideas, is the suggestion that it's often not a personal failing. It's not you.
Yeah.
It might actually be a flaw in the method itself. This collection of ideas really points out that motivation, that initial burst of enthusiasm, it's fleeting, it comes and goes.
It doesn't last forever, right?
No. And relying solely on it for these big, ambitious goals, well, it almost sets us up for disappointment. And it leads to what these concepts call identity-based guilt when we inevitably slip up.
Identity-based guilt. What does that mean exactly? Like feeling bad about who you are?
Precisely. It's when you internalize missing a goal, say skipping a planned study session, not as, okay, I had a hard day, I was tired, but as I'm lazy or I'm not disciplined enough.
Oh.
You make it about your fundamental character.
Oof. Yeah, I can see how damaging that is.
Yeah.
Instead of just acknowledging circumstances.
Right. It erodes self-trust over time. You start to believe you can't stick with things because you've told yourself you're the kind of person who doesn't.
So you used this analogy before. Like trying to fill a bucket with a fire hose. You get this huge initial splash, maybe some water stays in, but most of it just overflows and makes a mess.
Exactly. That's the go big approach. You get overwhelmed, you waste energy, and the bucket isn't consistently filling up. This alternative approach suggests a gentler drizzle, a steady, small stream.
A drizzle.
Yeah, it might seem slow, but it's far more effective for consistent long-term progress. The water actually accumulates.
So give me a concrete example, like the English studying thing.
Perfect example. The fire hoses. I must study English for 2 hours every single day. That's huge pressure.
Yeah, sounds exhausting already.
Right. The gentle drizzle is, today I will learn one new English word. Or maybe I'll listen to just 1 minute of an English podcast. It feels ridiculously small almost.
Almost too small, like it won't make a difference.
That's the initial reaction. But the key is consistency. Doing that tiny thing every day, or most days, builds up far more effectively than aiming for 2 hours and only managing it once a week before burning out.
Okay, I'm starting to see it.
Yeah.
And if we zoom out again, connecting this back to hustle culture, what are the broader consequences of living under that constant pressure?
Well, the consequences are pretty significant, actually. It leads to this pervasive guilt whenever you try to rest. Like resting is laziness.
Yeah, feeling guilty for taking a break. I know that one.
Exactly. It leads to chronic overworking, pushing yourself past reasonable limits. And maybe worst of all, it fosters this diminished sense of self-worth that gets completely tied up in visible achievements. Your value becomes what you produce, what you accomplish.
Not who you are, but what you do.
Precisely. And true productivity, as these ideas really emphasize, has to include recovery. Rest isn't the opposite of work, it's part of the work cycle. It's all about building consistent habits, ones you can actually maintain, not just these heroic, intense bursts followed by collapse. That whole illusion of overnight success we see everywhere. It hides the consistent, often small steps taken over time.
And the all or nothing thinking. If I can't do the full 2 hours, might as well do nothing.
Exactly, that's so common. I missed my workout Monday, so the whole week is ruined. It's just not a helpful or realistic way to approach things.
Okay, so this sets the stage perfectly. If more and harder isn't necessarily the answer, then what is? And this, I think, brings us neatly to our first really powerful micro habit.
Get practical.
Yeah. Making your habit so small, it feels almost silly. So small, you basically can't fail.
It sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? Make it smaller to achieve more. But there's a really important question here. Why does tiny actually work better?
Right. What's the psychology?
Well, Aaron, whose experiences are part of these concepts we looked at, shared his own story with writing. He used to aim for, 2 hours a day. Big goal. Very. And when he inevitably missed it because life happens, he felt like he broke his own self-trust, like he'd let himself down.
That identity-based guilt again.
Exactly. So he decided to shrink it, drastically. His new goal, just write 1 sentence a day.
1 sentence, that's it.
That was it. Sounds almost trivial, right? But what happened was fascinating. By aiming for just 1 sentence, the resistance vanished. He could always manage 1 sentence, even on the worst days.
Okay.
And often, that 1 sentence would naturally turn into 3, or a paragraph, or more. But crucially, there was no pressure for it to do so. The win was just writing the 1 sentence.
Wow. So he started building consistency. And just as importantly, he was rebuilding that confidence, that self-trust he'd lost.
Precisely. It completely shifted his relationship with the act of writing and with himself.
That's wild. Okay, so let's break down the benefits. It lowers resistance, that feeling of, ugh, I don't want to.
Definitely. It removes, or at least massively reduces, that guilt if you only do the tiny version.
Right. It builds momentum because doing something feels better than doing nothing.
Yes. Small wins create energy.
And critically, as you said, it rebuilds self-trust. You prove to yourself day by day that you can show up, even in a small way.
It reframes the whole thing. It's about getting started, not necessarily finishing some huge task right away, making it feel light, almost effortless, so you just do it without the internal battle.
Even on a bad day, you can probably manage 1 sentence or 1 new word.
Exactly. And think about how transformative this is for something like learning English. Instead of the daunting study for an hour, which you might skip if you're tired, it becomes learn 1 new word. Who can't do that? Or read 1 paragraph in English. Or listen to just 1 minute of audio.
Okay, I can see that feeling much more achievable. Less intimidating.
Completely. And this consistency, day after day, even if it's just 5 minutes, is genuinely the secret sauce for fluency, much more than occasional intense cramming sessions.
It reminds me of that idea that action creates energy. You don't wait to feel motivated, you just do the tiny action. And that itself generates a little spark.
That's exactly the principle at play. Action creates energy, energy creates momentum. You build this positive feedback loop. So the core message isn't you need to do more, it's you just need to start.
And starting small is the smartest way to start it all.
Couldn't have said it better. It bypasses the overwhelm and gets you moving.
Brilliant. Okay, micro habit number 1. Shrink it till you can't fail it. Love it. What's next on our list?
All right, next up in this micro habit toolkit is something that might seem a bit different, maybe even fluffy at first glance.
Ooh, intriguing. Hit me with it.
Noticing small joys.
Noticing small joys. Okay. How does that fit in with habits and discipline?
Well, think about it. We're often so wired for progress, right? Constantly looking ahead, chasing the next big win, the next milestone.
Yeah, the destination, not the journey.
Exactly. But what if happiness isn't just the reward you get after the huge accomplishment? What if it's actually a renewable daily energy supply that you can tap into right now just by paying attention?
Happiness is fuel, not just a prize. Tell me more. Why does this simple practice actually work?
It works fundamentally by counteracting our brain's built-in negativity biases.
Right, the caveman brain always looking for danger.
Precisely. It's an ancient survival instinct that makes us automatically focus more on problems, threats, and what's wrong. It helped us survive, but in modern life, it can make us miss all the good stuff that's actually happening.
So noticing small joys is like actively training your brain to look for the positive.
Exactly. By consciously pausing, even for a few seconds, to notice something simple and pleasant, maybe the warmth of sunlight on your skin, the smell of coffee brewing, a kind text message from a friend. You literally begin to rewire those neural pathways. You start training your brain to see and appreciate the good that is already present in your life right now.
It's like building a gratitude muscle.
It is, and it serves as this profound little reminder throughout the day that life isn't just about achieving the next thing or surviving the current challenges. It's also something to be experienced moment by moment.
Okay, that makes sense. You mentioned Aaron's story again here.
Yes, his personal experience really brought this one home for me. He talked about walking home after a particularly long, tiring day, just feeling drained.
We've all been there.
Totally. And then just for a moment, the golden evening sun hit the street in this perfect, beautiful way, and he just stopped for maybe 5 seconds.
Just paused.
Just paused and noticed it. And he said that tiny pause, that moment of beauty, completely shifted the rhythm of his entire day. It broke the pattern of tired negativity.
Wow. Just 5 seconds.
And this phrase just naturally came to him in that moment. If this isn't life, I don't know what is.
If this isn't life, I don't know what is.
That's powerful, isn't it? It became a kind of personal ritual for him, a little mantra to repeat when he noticed these small moments. And doing that consistently, he said, strengthened his muscle of presence and gratitude.
I love that, muscle of presence.
Yeah.
So practically, how do you do this? It sounds lovely, but how do you make it a habit?
The beauty of it is its simplicity. You don't need anything special. No equipment, no apps. You just need to consciously slow down just enough to pay attention for a few seconds throughout your day.
Look for a sensory spark, you called it.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Maybe it's the texture of a soft blanket, the sound of rain, the taste of your tea, the feeling of a cool breeze. Anything that engages your senses in a pleasant way.
And then use that grounding phrase or something similar.
Right. If this isn't life,
Yay.
or simply this is nice, or even just acknowledging it silently. The key is the conscious noticing and appreciation.
And how does this connect back to, say, learning English?
Oh, it's a brilliant, organic way to practice. When you notice that small joy,
Yeah.
try to describe it, even just in your head, in English.
Oh.
The sky looks soft and golden. This coffee tastes rich and smooth. I feel calm right now. You're connecting English words directly to real feelings, real sensory experiences.
Which makes the language stick much better than just memorizing lists.
Absolutely. It ties the language to emotion and lived experience. It makes it meaningful. And again, the bar is so low. Even one small moment a day, truly noticed and appreciated, starts to shift your perspective. It fuels you in a subtle but powerful way.
Micro habit 2. Notice small joys. Okay, I'm seeing a theme of simplicity and consistency here. What's number 3?
Number 3 tackles something universal. Stress.
Ah, yes. Our old friend stress. That tight chest, the racing thoughts. We usually see it as the enemy, right? Something to get rid of, to banish.
That's the default reaction, definitely. But this collection of ideas offers a really interesting perspective shift. What if the problem isn't the stress itself, but how we interpret it?
Okay, intriguing. So not getting rid of stress, but changing our relationship with it.
Exactly. Reframing it. There's actually research backing this up. Studies have shown, for instance, that students who are taught to reframe their pre-test nervousness, the sweaty palms, the pounding heart.
Yeah, I remember that feeling.
Right. If they reframe that as my body is getting ready to perform or this energy is helping me focus, they actually perform better on the test than students who just try to calm down or see the stress as purely negative.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
So just changing the label changes the outcome.
It seems to have a significant impact. In this view, stress isn't inherently bad. It's actually just energy. It's your body mobilizing resources. The stress signal often just means, this matters to me.
Okay. This matters. That feels different from this is awful.
It really does. It implies importance, engagement. The energy is there to help you focus and act on something you care about. So the reframe could be shifting from I can't handle this to something like, okay, this is a challenge, but I'm learning how to handle challenges like this.
Or instead of I hate feeling this way.
Maybe something like, This feeling means I care. This means I'm invested. This means I'm growing. It acknowledges the feeling, but gives it a different, more constructive meaning.
So what's the crucial step here in the moment? When you feel that tension rising, what do you actually do?
The crucial step, the micro habit, is to pause. Just for a beat when you feel that tension flare up.
Pause. Okay.
And in that pause, ask yourself, what's this stress trying to tell me? Or how can I interpret this energy usefully?
That brief reflection, it interrupts the automatic panic cycle, doesn't it?
Exactly. It gives you a tiny space. And in that space, you regain the power to respond thoughtfully instead of just automatically reacting based on that raw, panicked feeling.
Can you give me an example, maybe related to English learning again? Stress definitely comes up there.
Oh, absolutely. Imagine you're an English learner preparing for a really important job interview. The stakes feel high.
Yeah, major stress potential.
Right. The typical spiral might be, I'm not ready, my English isn't good enough, I'm going to mess this whole thing up, total panic mode.
Sounds familiar.
But using this reframe technique, you'd pause when you feel that anxiety surge. You'd take a breath, and you might tell yourself, okay, wow, I'm feeling a lot of energy right now. That makes sense. This interview is important to me. I care about doing well. I've prepared. This energy isn't a sign I'll fail. It's my body waking up to help me focus. It means I'm alive and engaged and ready.
That feels completely different. It anchors you rather than letting you spiral away.
It really does. It changes your internal state, which then changes how you show up, how you perform, and your whole experience of the stressful event. You start seeing the stress as a signal that you're invested, that you want to do well.
It's almost like making stress your ally instead of your enemy.
That's a great way to put it. The core idea is that stress isn't always the villain. Sometimes it's actually your teacher. It points out what truly matters to you. It nudges you towards growth. It helps you uncover your values.
Reframing stress. That's a big one. Okay, micro habit number 3. Powerful stuff. Where do we go next?
Next up is one that might seem purely about politeness at first, but it has deeper implications for self-perception.
Okay.
It's about consciously replacing sorry with thank you in certain situations.
Replacing sorry with thank you. We do say sorry a lot, don't we? Especially maybe when we don't need to.
We really do. Think about it. Sorry to bother you. Sorry I'm asking another question. Sorry I took up your time. Sorry I'm a few minutes late. We often over-apologize for things that aren't actually offenses.
Yeah, it becomes almost a verbal titic. What's the hidden cost of doing that all the time?
Well, what's really interesting here is how over-apologizing, even subtly, communicates that your presence, your needs, or your questions are an inconvenience or a burden.
Ouch. Yeah, I can see that.
And doing that repeatedly can chip away at your self-esteem. It reinforces a feeling that you're somehow less than or imposing on others.
So the shift to thank you is designed to counteract that.
Exactly. The thank you shift is incredibly powerful because it comes from a different place entirely. Instead of, sorry I'm late, you say, thank you for your patience, or thank you for waiting.
Yep.
Instead of sorry for bothering you with this question, it's thank you for your time, or thank you for helping me with this. One comes from a place of guilt or inadequacy.
Right.
The other comes from a place of appreciation and acknowledges the other person's contribution positively. It invites positive energy into the exchange instead of slightly negative apologetic energy.
So it builds self-respect, maybe boosts confidence a little.
Definitely. And it feels better for both people usually. Gratitude feels good to express and good to receive. Apologies can sometimes create awkwardness, especially if they're unnecessary.
This seems particularly relevant for language learners, doesn't it? I hear this all the time.
Oh, absolutely crucial. So many learners feel insecure about their level and preface everything with, sorry, my English is not good, or sorry for my mistakes.
Yes, exactly that.
But imagine shifting that. Instead of apologizing for your learning process, you express gratitude for the listener's patience. Thank you for being patient with my English. Or, thank you for helping me understand that word.
Wow, that sounds so much more confident and actually more fluent and natural too.
Doesn't it? It completely changes the dynamic. You're speaking from a place of gratitude and collaboration rather than inadequacy and guilt. It's incredibly empowering.
Let's take that meeting example again. You're learning English, you're in a meeting, maybe you feel a bit flustered trying to express yourself.
Okay.
The instinct might be to apologize. Sorry, my English is bad.
Right, which immediately puts you in a one-down position.
But using this shift, you could pause, take a breath, and say something like, thank you all for your patience as I explain this. I'm still learning, but I'm really keen to share this idea.
See, That completely reframes it. It acknowledges the learning process, but positions it as a point of connection and shared effort, not a personal failing. It turns a perceived weakness into a moment of, actually, strength and vulnerability.
You're not just swapping words, you're kind of reclaiming your space in the conversation.
You absolutely are, and you're building confidence with every interaction where you choose gratitude over apology. A practical tip here is just to start noticing. Notice how often you say sorry. Ask yourself if an apology is truly needed, or if a thank you would fit better.
Maybe keep a little mental tally for a day.
Yeah, or even jot it down. Then practice rephrasing those sorry moments with thank you. Maybe even practice saying them aloud. It feels weird at first, but it gets easier.
Because gratitude doesn't just make you sound like a better English speaker.
No, it makes you feel like a more grounded, confident version of yourself, period, in any language.
Micro habit 4. Replace unnecessary sorries with thank yous. Got it. Okay, what's our final micro habit?
Our final one is perhaps the most fundamental, underpinning so much of emotional discipline and intentional living.
Okay, sounds important.
It is. It's about consciously building the pause.
Building the pause. That tiny space, you mean, between something happening, a trigger, and how you respond.
Exactly that space. We live in a world that constantly pressures us to be on, doesn't it? To react instantly. Emails, messages, comments, demands. The expectation is often immediate response.
Yeah, react.
But this micro habit is about reclaiming that moment before the reaction, cultivating that tiny gap between stimulus and response.
Why is that gap so important? What does it actually do for us?
Oh, its impact is huge if we connect it to the bigger picture of emotional discipline. That pause, that tiny space, is where wisdom lives. It protects relationships, for one. How many arguments escalate because of heat-of-the-moment reactions?
Too many to count. Saying things you regret.
Exactly. The pause significantly reduces regret. It helps you avoid saying or doing things driven purely by anger, frustration, or fear. It also builds genuine emotional strength. Resisting the urge to react impulsively actually strengthens your discipline muscle.
And it encourages mindfulness, being present.
Absolutely. It forces you to check in with yourself, to ask, okay, what's really going on here? What's the wisest way forward? It's the moment you give yourself permission to breathe, to reflect, and then crucially, to choose your next action based on your values, not just raw emotion.
Okay, give me some examples. Like, when would you use this pause?
Think about getting a rude or critical email. The impulse might be to fire back immediately, right?
Oh, yeah, defend yourself.
The pause means waiting. Maybe drafting a reply but not sending it. Maybe stepping away for an hour or even a day. Or in a conflict with someone, instead of interrupting or escalating, taking a deliberate deep breath before you speak, letting their words land before you formulate your response.
So practically, how do we build this pause? It sounds great, but hard to do when emotions are high.
It takes practice, for sure. The first step, like with reframing stress, is recognizing your triggers. What situations, people, or comments reliably make you want to react instantly and maybe negatively?
Knowing your buttons, basically.
Knowing your buttons. Then, when a trigger hits, try using a simple grounding phrase internally. Something like pause, or hold on, or don't react yet. Just something to interrupt the automatic chain reaction.
Okay, a mental stop sign.
Exactly. And then breathe. Take one slow, deep breath. It sounds cliche, but it physiologically calms your nervous system just enough to create that space.
And if you need more time?
Ask for it. It's perfectly okay to say, can I take a moment to think about that? Or let me get back to you on this. Delaying your response is a powerful form of pausing.
And then in that pause, you reflect. Will what I say or do next actually help the situation, or will it harm it?
Precisely. Is this response aligned with the kind of person I want to be? It brings intention back into the equation.
How does this apply in the English learning context? Pausing in a conversation.
Hugely valuable. Imagine someone is speaking really fast English and you feel overwhelmed, you don't understand. The panic reaction might be to just nod or freeze or blurt out something random.
Yeah, pretend you understood.
Right. But building the pause allows you, even in that moment of pressure, to calmly say, sorry, could you please repeat that more slowly? Or just a second, let me process that. Or even, let me think for a second how to phrase this in English.
Ah, so the pause gives you time to access the language you need or to ask for clarification gracefully.
Exactly. It prevents panic from shutting down your communication. These concepts we've been discussing actually refer to that space between the stimulus and the response as your power. That's where your freedom lies.
Your power. I like that. It's not about being slow or hesitant.
Not at all. It's about being wise, being intentional, choosing your response rather than being controlled by your impulses. And over time, consistently choosing thoughtful responses shapes your identity. You become known to yourself and others as someone who is considered not impulsive.
It reminds me of that famous quote, something like, between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space is our power to choose our response.
Yeah.
In our response lies our growth and our freedom.
That captures it perfectly. And it underlines that emotional discipline isn't some rigid state of perfection. It's not about never feeling anger or frustration.
Right.
It's about being present with those feelings, being thoughtful and being strong enough, having built that pause muscle to choose who you want to be in response to them. And that, I think, is real strength.
Building the pause. Micro habit number 5. Okay, these 5 habits together, they paint a really compelling picture of a different way to grow.
They really do.
So we've talked about these incredible micro habits for life in general: rejecting hustle, shrinking habits, noticing joys, reframing stress, swapping sorry for thank you, building the pause. But what's truly remarkable, and we want to really highlight, is how they weave together to form this kind of language learning layer.
Yes, exactly. It's not just about general self-improvement. It fundamentally transforms how you can approach acquiring a skill like English.
How so? How does it offer a different path than, say, traditional language classes?
Well, it offers a radically different way, I think, a much softer, more human-centered approach. It moves beyond just drilling grammar rules or memorizing endless vocabulary lists, which can feel very dry and disconnected.
Yeah, the textbook grind.
Right. This is about building emotional intelligence through the process of language learning. It's about using English not just as a code to be cracked, but as a genuine tool for thinking, for feeling, for processing your experiences, and ultimately for expressing your authentic self.
So the learning becomes more integrated with who you are.
Absolutely. For instance, the vocabulary breakdown we touched on earlier, understanding words like lack or willpower or burnout, doable, momentum, gratitude. It's not just about the definition, it's about understanding the emotional resonance of those words, often through the context of these very habits.
Learning burnout by understanding the consequences of hustle culture, not just looking it up.
Precisely. It's context-based learning. Understanding a phrase like, if you never rest, you'll eventually burn out, hits differently than just seeing burnout equals extreme exhaustion. It connects to lived experience and the principles we're discussing.
Okay, so let's explicitly connect the dots. How do these 5 micro habits directly feed into becoming more fluent and confident in English?
Let's tick them off. 1, shrinking the habit, say learning 1 word a day or listening for 1 minute, builds that crucial consistency in your English practice, making study less overwhelming and more sustainable.
Makes sense. Keeps you showing up.
2, replacing sorry with thank you, like thank you for your patience, directly teaches you more confident, natural-sounding English phrasing for interactions. It models positive communication.
Yeah, definitely sounds more fluent.
3, noticing small joys and describing them, even internally. The sky is blue, this feels good, gets you practicing full sentences rooted in real, present-moment experience. It ties words to emotions, making vocabulary stick.
Using English to narrate your life, basically.
Yeah. In small ways, yes. 4, reframing stress, telling yourself, this energy means I care. Before speaking English in a high-pressure situation helps you manage performance anxiety and actually speak through the nervousness rather than being silenced by it.
Crucial for presentations or interviews.
Hugely. And 5, building the pause, taking that breath before responding in English, asking for clarification, calmly gives you practical, real-time tools for navigating actual conversations with more grace, less panic, and better comprehension.
So they're not just abstract concepts, they're practical tools for the language learning journey itself.
Exactly. And underpinning all of this is a fundamentally gentle, non-judgmental tone. It encourages progress over perfection, effort over flawless performance. It says it's okay to start small, it's okay to be learning.
Takes the pressure off.
It really does. It integrates English learning into your real life and personal growth. Rather than making it this separate, stressful chore, you're blending self-development with language acquisition. You're not just learning how to, describe your daily schedule.
Yeah.
You're learning how to describe your inner world, your feelings, your experiences.
Learning to describe your soul, as you put it earlier.
It sounds lofty, maybe, but that's the potential here, reinforcing that idea. If all you can manage today is 1 new sentence in English, that's enough. That kindness towards yourself is key.
And learning how to label feelings accurately in English using these techniques, that must be incredibly empowering for processing experience.
Absolutely. It gives learners tools not just for communication, but for deeper self-understanding and emotional regulation, all while practicing the language. It's a really holistic approach.
Wow. Okay, what a truly illuminating deep dive this has been. We've really uncovered how rejecting that relentless hustle culture and instead shrinking our habits, actively noticing small joys, learning to reframe stress, replacing those unnecessary sorries with thank yous, and consciously build in the pause. How these seemingly small shifts can profoundly change our entire growth journey.
It's a powerful combination.
Yeah, these aren't just, clever productivity tricks or life hacks. They feel more like genuine pathways to becoming a calmer, more consistent, and actually more deeply confident version of yourself.
I agree. They foster a different kind of strength.
So as we wrap up, perhaps this exploration raises a really important question for you, the listener, to consider.
Yes, a final thought to mull over. In this world that is constantly relentlessly pushing you to do more, be faster, achieve bigger, what one tiny, gentle shift could you make starting today?
Just one small thing.
Yeah, just one. Something that would genuinely honor the effort you're already making, protect your peace of mind, and actually move you forward, whether in English learning or any other goal, but without leading to that all too common burnout.
How can you maybe redefine success for yourself, moving away from those exhausting, unsustainable sprints?
And towards a model of consistent, gentle, sustainable growth. What would that look like for you right now?
That's a powerful question to sit with. We really hope this deep dive leaves you feeling, a renewed sense of possibility. And maybe with a practical toolkit you can actually start using for truly sustainable growth.
Gently does it.
Gently does it. And if you found real value in our exploration today, if these ideas spark something for you, please take that moment now, like this deep dive.
Share it with someone.
Yeah, share it. Send it to a friend, a colleague, anyone you know who might benefit from these insights about gentle growth. And of course, please subscribe to our channel for more in-depth analyses like this one.
Your support genuinely helps us keep creating this content, digging into these ideas and sharing them.
It absolutely does. It fuels us. So thank you again. Until next time, keep exploring these ideas, keep growing gently, and keep discovering the profound power that lies in those small moments and tiny shifts. You really got this.
When Lena moved to a new country, she was excited to learn English. She had big dreams, fluent conversations, confident presentations, and maybe even making international friends. So, she bought thick grammar books, downloaded language apps, and promised herself she'd study 2 hours every day. But within a week, she missed a day, then another. Guilt crept in. Maybe I'm just not disciplined enough, she thought. One morning, after failing another long study session, Lena remembered something a podcast had said. Make the habit so small it's impossible to fail. So that day, she did just one thing. She whispered one new English word to herself. Momentum. That word became her new way forward. Each day, she did one tiny task, read one English sentence, watched a 2-minute video, or whispered a vocabulary word. Slowly, it didn't feel like a task anymore. It felt doable. And from that place of ease, she started noticing other things, like how often she said, "Sorry for my bad English." Inspired by the podcast, she began saying, "Thank you for listening." Instead, her confidence shifted. One evening, while sipping tea and watching the sunset, a phrase surfaced. "If this isn't life, I don't know what is." She smiled. English wasn't just a language now. It was how she captured beauty. Even stress felt different. When anxiety about speaking came up, she'd pause and think, "This means I care." And in conversations, when someone rushed her or corrected her accent, she didn't snap. She paused, breathed, responded calmly. Lena wasn't just learning English anymore. She was learning herself through English. Gently, consistently, and with heart.